Peace be upon you, friends. With you is your friend Darum. I ask you to support the channel by subscribing, liking, and posting motivating comments and an enjoyable viewing experience for you. During that period in which Amar mastered most of the secrets of the profession, a man came crying at the magician's door and asked to enter. Amar asked the magician for permission and entered and began to tell the magician his story, while Amar stood next to the magician and heard what was going on between them. The man said that a few months ago he married a girl who was much younger than him, and ever since he married her, nightmares began to haunt him. A frightening figure surrounded by smoke would come to him, threatening him that if he approached her, it would kill him. He was ordering him to divorce her in every nightmare. The magician replied to him and said, "Do you have enough money?" The man said, "I am a well-known merchant, and I have enough money." The magician asked him for a large sum, and the man paid it without hesitation, kissing the magician's hand and saying to him, "Please save me from what I am in." The magician, Amar, ordered the man to be delivered and said to the merchant, "Don't be afraid, you won't see anything after today." Amar returned after delivering the man to the door and found the magician talking and muttering, so he hid behind the door to hear his words. Because Amar was using this method to memorize the talismans that the magician had not told him, so that Amar would not outperform him and remain weaker than him and always in need. Amar heard some talismans that he had never heard before, and after the magician finished them, thick smoke appeared in the air. The room and the magician began talking to that smoke, saying, "Jassar, stop chasing the merchant and go to the official's sister." Now, the smoke quickly disappeared and the magician remained silent, closed his eyes and entered upon him, Amar. After he waited a little while and said, "Do you order me to do anything else, sir?" The magician said to him, "No, leave me alone now, Amar." Amar went out thinking about warning the sister of the senior official, because he now knew that the magician was the one who sent Jassar to the village, and he was the one who ordered Jassar to kidnap his niece. So Amar was determined to warn the sister of the senior official, but the matter was not easy, and he could not. Amar reached the senior official or his sister to warn them. Days passed and Amar forgot the story until a person entered with a group of people and asked about the magician by name. Amar responded and told them that he was busy, so they pushed him and entered the magician by force and said to him, "The sister of the senior official has been suffering for weeks from a demon that has been messing with her every night. We tried everything until someone told us that you are good at dealing with this. Things, is this true?" The magician said, "Yes, but I want to meet the official in person." One of them replied and said, "Why do you want to meet him?" The magician said, "The matter requires some examination and inquiry, and you will not. It will benefit you." The men consulted with Amar behind them, watching and hearing what was going on between them. Then he said, one of the men, after consulting with the rest, "We must ask the senior official himself, as the decision is not in our hands." The magician replied to them and said, "As you wish." The men left and the magician asked Amar to come out and close the door behind him. Amar closed the door but didn't come out and hid in the room. He heard the magician using the same talismans that brought forth the smoke. Indeed, the smoke appeared and the magician said to him, "Make her night a living hell, Jassar. I wanted the senior official to come himself, kneeling at my feet to ask me for help." The smoke quickly disappeared and Amar could not go out for fear of being exposed. So Amar stayed in the room until the morning until the magician came out, and then he quickly went to the official's house. Al-Kabir told him to warn him, but the guards prevented him. So he sat at the door of the magician's house thinking, An hour after Ammar sat at the door of the magician's house, the same men who came to the magician yesterday came to him with signs of fear and anxiety on their faces and said to Ammar, "Where is your master?" Ammar said to them, "He left," and one of them shouted and said, "When will he return?" Ammar responded and said, "I don't know, but I can help." The man looked at him with contempt and said, "And who are you?" He said, "I, Ammar, are his assistant." The man said to him, "There is no trick. Come with us." Ammar went to the palace of the senior official, and the official received him well and asked him to examine his sister, so he did. Then the official said to him, "Can you help her?" Ammar said to him, "No, I cannot." The official became very angry and shouted at Ammar and accused him of imposture and lying. But Ammar said to him, "But I know who can." So the official calmed down and said, "Please guide me to it." Ammar raised his index finger to the sky and said, "God, there is no God but He, the ever-living, the ever-subsisting." The verse. The official cried, and Ammar approached him and said to him, "God will not disappoint you if you call on Him, and do not make the same mistake I made by turning to someone else." Ammar left the palace, and behind him was the voice of the official, crying and praying. Ammar went home, and the magician had not returned. He sat on the magician's chair and began reading the talismans to summon Jassar. When he arrived, Ammar said to him, "I want you to turn the magician's life into hell tonight, and then you will be free, Jassar. But before you leave, bring me his head." After Jassar left, Ammar went to bed and slept without waiting for the magician to come, as he used to do. Ammar woke up the next morning to find the magician's head next to him, looking at him with open eyes and flies flying around him, his mouth open, his teeth shattered, and some drops of blood on his eyelashes. Ammar got up from his bed quietly, grabbed the magician's head, and threw it away from his bed. Since that day, 3 decades ago, no one knows why Ammar did not return to his family in the village and chose instead to move to the foot of a nearby mountain, carrying all the magician's books with him and remaining there to this day. The last days of Salem, as told to the cemetery guard. The cemetery guard completed his speech by talking about what happened to Salem, Ammar's brother, during that period and said, "After Ammar left for the capital, Salem remained in the village with his family, and his life returned to normal, and their lives continued normally until Salem longed to see his brother, Ammar, who had been gone for more than 2 years. So he consulted his family and then decided to go to the capital to visit him, but he did not know. Where can he find him? So he decided to ask in the mosques. Perhaps he worked as a muezzin or imam, because Ammar's voice was very beautiful. When Salem arrived in the capital, he began searching for his brother in the mosques, but he did not find him. He remained in the capital searching for him for more than a week until he gave up and decided to return to the village. But God willing, Salem saw his brother Ammar by chance in the market while he was buying some things, and Salem was happy. Very quickly, and went to him to hug him, but Ammar pretended that he did not know him for fear that the magician would see him, because the magician threatened him that if he saw Salem again, he would kill him. So Ammar ran away from his brother and denied knowing him. But Salem insisted on talking to him until Ammar pushed him and ran away. Salem followed his brother after he pushed him and Salem was afraid to catch up with Ammar until Ammar entered the magician's house, which prompted Salem to ask Ammar whose house is there. He replied to him and said, "A sheikh reads to me." Salem smiled and said, "Praise be to God." Salem decided to stay another night in the capital until he could talk to his brother and find out the answer to his question. At night, Salam heard a knock on the door of his room that he had rented to spend the night. A conversation took place between him and a stranger at the door for a period that did not exceed a few minutes. Then Salam returned. Then he went to his room and the person who was chatting with him left. The owner of the apartment that Salam had rented conveyed these words to the security authorities, who came in the morning to investigate and to transfer Salam to the hospital. Salam went crazy minutes after his visitor left, and he lost his mind that night and began screaming all night.
Until the owner of the residence was forced to inform security, Salam remained in the hospital for several months, and his family, who visited him regularly until the last day before his death 10 years ago, was notified. The cemetery guard's words ended. Bloody steps back. I started walking towards the village, returning from the cemetery, after hearing the story that the guard told me. I began to think that I had wronged Ammar, and that Dajan had deceived me in order to make it easier for him to kill him, because he would not have been able to do that without the olive branch that had shared his bed with Ammar yesterday. But I did not know why. Dajan killed Ammar. I arrived at the village and did not go to Salam's house. I continued on my way to Ammar's house, whose death had not yet spread because he lived in isolation on the side of the mountain away from people. A short distance before I reached Ammar's house, Dajan appeared to me and began. He was upset and said to me, "Why were you late?" I did not respond to him and continued on my way. All the way while I was walking towards Ammar's house, he kept talking to me nervously and saying, "Why do you come back? That's it, let's go." I did not respond to him until I reached the door of Ammar's house. Dajan remained silent. Then I turned my gaze to him and said, "I don't know why I killed him, but I know that he could not be the person who sent the devil to my mother, and she succeeded in deceiving me into helping you. If you want to return this help to me one day, then tell me. As for now, honoring the dead is burying him." I entered the house and John was outside silent. I cleaned the house of blood as much as I could and buried Ammar under a tree that he always loved to take shade in. Then I prayed for him and went back toward his house. I went to Dajan and told him in a sharp tone, "Take me back to my homeland." He said, "I will not take you back." So I screamed at him and said, "Bring me back, Satan." For the first time I heard John saying, "Yes, sir." In no time, I was in front of my house. I entered the house, reassured my family, went to my room, and slept for a long time that day. Days passed, and the appearance of Dan in front of me became less and less frequent until I began to forget something called Dan. After a few months had passed, Dajan appeared to me shortly before the sunset prayer and said, "I wanted to leave you to them, but I couldn't.